Welcome back to the channel, guys. Now this is module 2 of the 2022 past paper, Environmental Science Paper 2. All right. So we're going to start at question 3, which is the first question of module 2. Now I'm going to read the question. Country X is a small Caribbean island which recently gained independence in 2020. Historically, it is mainly an agricultural economy, and most of its inhabitants were involved in the extensive farming of sugar, coffee, lemon, and limes. However, over the years, tourism and financial services have featured prominently as the country's main economic sector. Table 3 illustrates Country X main demographic characteristics at independence. Alright, so this is table 3. Now, what we have to do is to assess the table. Alright, so it says the main demographic characteristic of country X. Now, as you know, demographic characteristics are like the features, all the features of a population of the people. So the birth, death rates, birth rate, fertility rates of the population, immigration, emigration, all right, childbearing age. All of these are demographic factors that affect population. All right, so let's move to the first question here. Now the first question here says calculate the growth rate of the population of country X at independence. Of course, the growth rate is basically the change in population size of a country. All right, so what that means, guys, is if the population is 2,000 people this year and it is 2,000 next year, then there's no change. So population growth there would be 0, right? But if it is 2,000 this year and it's 2,100 next year, then it's grown by 100%. All right, so that's an example. All right, anyways, let's get into the formula. Now the formula for population growth is births minus death times plus or minus net migration times 100 over the total population. All right, now in order to understand the net migration aspect of the formula, let's look at this note brief over here. It says when immigration is larger than emigration, a positive net migration occurs. All right, so when you have persons moving into a country, a lot of persons moving into a country than leaving the country, then the net migration is positive. All right, that's a good thing, and vice versa. All right, so let's go on further. So the birth here is 2,000, right? Minus death, which is 500. So we plug in all of that in the formula. Now, to get this part here, if you notice the plus and minus, that will tell you in order to decide which one, you have to use this note brief over here. So here we see that emigration is 200 and immigration is 100. So emigration is more than immigration. So this would be view a negative value. So 100 from 200 is 100, and then the sign would be negative. All right. Now that will be placed over 120,000 because 120,000 is the population size. All right. The next step is you will calculate the bracket. So 500 from 2,000 is 1,500, 1,500. Now you're going to multiply that positive 1,500 times a negative 100. So when the signs are different, of course, you would subtract and put the sign of the sign beside the larger value. So the 1,500 is positive. So of course you get a positive 1,400. All right, so you'd have 1,400 over the 120,000 times 100. All right, now when you reach this stage, guys, what I do, I just multiply across. So 1,400 times 100 give you 140,000. Then you will divide that by 120,000 directly. So if you use your calculator here now, you just divide the 140,000 by the 120,000. What you get, you round off to 3 decimal points. Some persons do it at 2 decimal points. Now, so the answer is 1.167. Now the unit for this is the average annual percentage change in population. All right, so please note the unit. It is not percentage, but actually the change between death and live births for the next year, between 2 or more years, right? And of course, immigration and emigration, the change between those. So this is calculated on a yearly basis. So in that year, each year, this is calculated. Let's move on. All right, the next part of the question says, what is the double time of country X? Now, of course, to getting into understanding the question, let's look at what is double time. Now, double time is the time it takes for a population to double its size or value. So, in other words, how many years it takes for a population to double its size. So, for example, say Jamaica is 3 million persons right now this year, 2024. All right, as I said, 3 million. So what is said, how many years the country will take to reach 6 million? All right, so what you're going to use now, the formula, the rule of 70 to calculate our answer. So the formula is 70 divided by the population growth rate. Of course, guys, for you to get this question, this part of the question correct, of course, you would have to get this part correct. Or you have to first calculate this part in order to calculate this part or use this method. All right, so it's the rule of 70 I'm using. So it is 70 divided by the growth rate, which is 1.167. So you divide the 70 directly by the 1.167. So no cancel, don't break down. Just divide the 70 by 1.167. And your answer is 41.92 years to double its population. All right, so with this growth rate, this country X, will take 41.92 years to double its population size. And of course, the population size was 120,000 persons. All right, the next step says to calculate the fertility rate of country X. All right, so let us go into the definition of fertility rate. Now, fertility rate is the average number of live births per 1,000 women aged 15 to 49 or of childbearing age in any given year. All right, so it's how many children born or offspring born alive. So of a country based on the rules, country set up rules, what are the childbearing age. So, but in general, based on the old text, this is the age that was used. All right. So let us go to the formula. The formula says it is the number of births, and of course, not just any births, because children can born, but you can have stillbirths. They can die during giving of birth. So we're not using just births in general, but it should be live births. Very important. All right. So it is number of births, which is live births I'm talking, over the number of women aged 15 to 49 times 1,000. Or in other words, number of women of childbearing age. All right. So we go up and we plug the numbers into the formula. So number of live births according to the data is total live births here is 25,000, and the number of women of childbearing age is 40,000. All right, so we will plug that information here, and of course we'll do it, multiply that by 1,000, and I will explain what the 1,000 means. All right, so after you do your calculation, remember, let's multiply the 25,000 times the 1,000 and then divide the answer by 40,000. All right, of course you will get 62.5. Now 62.5 births, but the 1,000 here means per 1,000 women per year. That's the unit. So when they calculate fertility rate, they calculate it as per 1,000 women per year. They do that on a yearly basis. All right. So those are just some standard units you should make sure you understand. You put those in and you will get a good mark. All right. The next part of the question, let's move on. Alright, so using the information in table 3, sketch a diagram to show the shape that the HX structure of country X is likely to take. State one reason for the shape of the HX structure diagram for country X. Of course, guys, this is the one I would say. Yes, and my reason is when I look at the growth rate, there wasn't, it is not, it is above 0. So when you have 0, when the growth rate is 0, remember I said the population would be the same. So for example, if the population is 120,000 people this year, and it is after birth, the same 120,000, you get, when they check birth rate again, it's the same. When they check population size, it is the same 120,000. Then that means the growth rate would be 0, means no growth in population size. But you look at this growth rate that we have a 1.167. It means that birth actually increased. So using this diagram, which is the age sex structure diagram, you see that growth, we have a little bit, this was the origin, this is the current population, this is the population that is middle age, then birth is wider at the bottom, so it means that there's more birth than the persons, than the number of persons living, because if you understand the age sex structure, it shows that the width of both sides of this diagram is speaking about the population. All right, so I soon show you the parts of the age sex structure. All right, so over here we have male population, over here female population, and of course we have age in between, but I'll choose this one. Let me explain it again, and then I'll show you some others. All right, so here, speaking about the width, down here is broader than the middle and it's broader than the top, but it's slightly sloping, it's slightly broader. It means that birth rate signifies growth rate, right? So birth rate is slightly higher than the current population size, which would mean that which would match up with this 1.167 growth rate. Death, when I calculate the mortality rate, it was a 16.67 persons per 1,000 individuals. So the death is not so high, not very high. So then again, you see at the top here, the diagram here is slightly sloping, so it shows that death is not so drastic. All right, so that's why I choose here. All right, let's go. For those who don't fully understand the diagram, let's me show you the structure, and then I come back and explain these two. All right, so these are some examples. So as I said, the top part of the diagram here is relating to individuals over the age of 65. It's right here. You know that over the age of 65, these persons are going to die, right? They're going to old age, so they are going towards the death. The middle part here is the middle age individual, and 15 years below, persons younger than 15 years old to 0 to 1 year old, right? Of course, so that's the aged part. Over here is speaking about the population of the males. So going this side would speak to the size of the population, right? So if the curve goes out, like this one, shows that population size for this age group, middle age group, is large. This one, it's not so wide. The curve is going in. So it shows that population is reducing. This one over here again shows that the current population size is large. But as you can see down here, it's in. So it shows that birth rate is low because this population is going in. So when the curve moves out, population is increasing. When it moves into the middle, it means it's decreasing. All right. So over this side speaks about the male, and over this side speaks about the females. All right. So again, this one would be the answer for what we looked at, right? Birth rate is slightly it's a pretty much higher birth rate than the current population, but the death rate is not so fast. But this one is showing that death rate is very fast, all right, because it gets very it's getting very low at the top here, all right, compared to the population here. So the population was here, the population size was wide here, and then it gets narrow very fast. So it shows that death is fast. This one, the population size is here, but it doesn't get narrow very fast. It's slowly moving in, so it's so that death rate is slow. All right, guys. So let's move back to the question. All right, so it's the same thing. This one here, because the populations for both sides are straight, it shows that the birth rate is 0. Now, when you have a broad bottom to a current population, it shows that birth rate is high. All right, let's move on. So this is the answer. This is the correct one that you should have. Let's move on. All right. Using the data given in table 3, discuss 2 factors which may have influenced the demographic of country X. Well, guys, I use the HDI, which is the Human Development Index, and of course, I use the GDI, which is Gender Related Development Index. All right. Let me look back at the table before I explain what they mean. So if you notice here, it says HDMI, and they give you a here, and GDI, and they give you a figure. All right, so the HDI is 0.805 and the GDI is 0.353. All right, let's go back. Now those, when you're talking about the development of a country, these are 2 index that are used to measure the development of the country, guys. So if you want to know if a country is poor or rich or developed or developing, then these are the 2 indexes that are used by a country. Now, the HDI, Human Development Index, it measures the achievement in 3 main areas. So the HDI look on the health of the country, the education, and the standard of living of the people. All right, so it is used to measure the development of the country in these 3 areas. Now, a country that is very developed, you know, most of the Caribbean countries developing, right? What that means for health is that the health tells you if it is developed or developing. Education, standard of living will tell you if it is developed or developing. Now, in a developing country like we in the Caribbean, health, most persons cannot access health. At a certain level, it is so expensive for them that a lot of them can't access it. And what happened? A lot of them persons die when they go to the hospitals, right? Another aspect is birth. We have a lot of stillbirths, meaning a lot of baby die during birth. It shows that the health sector is not developed. Certain equipment we don't have in the hospital to save lives. So the health, many persons cannot access it because they are poor, or there are not enough facility or training here. So we have a lot of debt. The developed countries, they are far ahead. They save more lives. Persons are living much longer because of the health system. They save more births, more lives at birth. So they are more developed. The education, now in the Caribbean up to secondary level, there's education, right? Not say particular free, but the population is are exposed to mandatory education. That is good. But to go to tertiary institutions, not many countries can afford to send a lot of our people there, our students there. So in the developed countries like the Caribbean, most persons don't have the money to educate their children. So those countries would have less education. The persons there, they're exposed to less education. The wealthier countries would be exposed to more education. It's easier for them. There are more government policies or grants available to send those um, their people to get education. While in the Caribbean, there's not enough programs, there's not enough income, or not enough help from the government to send individuals to get education, or some of the family members cannot afford to do so. All right. And standard of living, guys, mean the access of food, clothing, and shelter. In the developed countries, those will give you a lower number as well. All right, so let's read here to understand the figure. So before I read, there was on the diagram there was a 0.805. Now this is not bad. Now when you're doing standard of living, when you're measuring it with a number, if it is close to 0, let me read it. Not brief. Close to 0, it's bad. Close to 1, it's good. So 0.805 is not so bad. All right. It is not as developed as an England or so, because England in 2001 it was about 0.9 something. All right. So this is showing you that the HDI of the country that gets independent now is not bad. It's more than average. All right. All right, let me finish reading. The country HDI is good. The more educated a country is, the lower its growth rate will be. All right. So this point that I made here is very important. You have to know, guys, the more educated individuals are, females and males, these individuals will have less children, because they are aware that extra children will put a strain on the resource of the country. Also, when the females are more occupied with a job and they are independent, they don't have to depend on the males for support. So they have less children. They don't have to be forced into doing what they don't want to. All right. All right. So those are some information the HDI shows. Now the GDI is also used as an index. It influences the growth rate of the country. So the GDI, guys, is gender related development index. Now it looks at these three different here, similar to the human development index. So let me read it. The gender related development index has the same function as the HDI. However, it compares males and females roles. And of course, as I mentioned a while ago, more educated females will reproduce less and be more independent, having less children, and hence a lower growth rate of the country will result. So what this is promoting, guys, is gender equality. So if you notice, some of the grants that are given have to have females apart. Now, in the Caribbean, you know that males used to hold certain positions, like prime minister. Females couldn't hold certain position or get certain position in their job or a certain job. Now, we have more equality now, where females are getting top jobs that men used to hold. You can have a female prime minister and so forth. All right, so that's what it means. So the higher the number, the better the country. That's what they're saying. Less growth rate will happen. All right. Let me point that out. For growth rate, guys, where growth rate remains at 0, those countries are more developed. That's what they're basically saying. When the growth rate is remaining at 0 or close to 0, then those countries are more developed. All right. So that's the relationship between growth rate and the amount of individuals that are born. All right, let's move on. Now, define the following terms. Human Development Index. So I'm going to read it again. The HDI, this is a country's total measure achievement in three main areas: health, education, and standard of living. And two, Gender Development Index. The Gender Development Index, Human Related Development Index. Put related here. The Human Related Development Index. This is a country's total measure of achievement in three main areas, but relates to inequality of male and female. So it compares male to female in these three areas. All right. Now, what this is saying, guys, let me just revise. The more educated a female is, more jobs they have, more better their standard of living, more equal we are as human, more growth rate will remain stable. It's better. The economy, the country will be better. That's what they're saying. All right. Here it says, explain the difference between gross domestic product and the Human Development Index as population indices. All right. Let me read. The GDP is a financial value of all the goods and services produced by a country. Less exports. It helps to measure the standard of living of the population, meaning the amount of food, clothing, and shelter per person. All right. So the GDP, guys, it doesn't add in the exports. Only when you do GNP, it includes the exports. All right. So the total production of a country, except those that are exports, and they put a financial value. But the GDP, guys, only speak about the food, clothing, and shelter of the individuals of a country. Right. While the HDI now, the HDI looks at the standard of living of the people, their access to healthcare and education. So of course, the HDI is a wider index. It looks at a holistic approach. It has a holistic approach on the country population. So this is much wider than the GDP. The GDP looks at one aspect. The HDI looks at three major aspects. Let's move on. Alright, so using the information given in table 3, explain why country X is most likely to be affected by one of the following: habitat destruction or the introduction of invasion species. Alright, so we look at habitat destruction, guys. Let me read. It says, since the country is now featuring tourism visits, the country will be making more hotels and beaches. Land will be cleared, mangroves will be dumped, etc. All right. So as it says here, it says that over the years, tourism and financial services have featured prominently as the country's main economic sector. So and I realized this in even the Caribbean countries, because in order to get income, these countries, they will promote tourism and they'll do almost anything to keep or get these tourists here. All right, guys. So these will happen, and more tourists come, they will take in new species. Now, invasive species can be taken from overseas as well as they can migrate from where the habitat is disrupted to another location where they are disruptive. All right. All right, continue. It says, define the following terms: lifespan and life expectancy. All right, also these are factors of the population demographic as well, guys. Now, lifespan. All right, let me read. This is the maximum age a human had ever lived. Example, a female lived up to 122 years, and her name is Jean Calment. The oldest man is Jeroman Kimara, and he lives up to 116 years. So this is lifespan. It speaks about how long a person has ever lived. Alright, that's it basically. Now, life expectancy is different. Life expectancy speaks to a population and what conditions can affect how long or how old persons will live. right? So, for example, healthcare. The healthcare system is not good. Then persons are expected not to live as very long as person in countries that the health system is way better. All right. So let me read. Life expectancy is the average age persons of a country is predicted to live based on environmental factors, social factors, etc. If at birth there is a lot of death, then it is expected that life expectancy will be low. All right. Different country has different expectancy. The general life expectancy is 72 years. Other factors such as supply of clean drinking water, war, sanitation, etc. influence life expectancy of individuals. Alright guys, so it's the average age persons are expected to live based on the conditions of their country. Alright, so country like having war, the population don't expect to live long, especially for the male, those who are well. And you can see that going on right now, guys. Alright. Part B now it says state the major difference between lifespan and life expectancy. Alright, as I said now, lifespan is the maximum age that a person has ever lived. While life expectancy, correct this part, is the age that people of a particular country may live based on the number of factors of that country. So based on the factors that are exposed to the country, you can make a judgment. So okay, maybe this person will live at 65. And if babies are dying at birth, it means that the healthcare is not good. So you know that maybe overall something to them in their mid age they might die. So you know you could say, all right, okay, maybe at 50. So different countries have different life expectancy. All right, guys. So let's move on. All right. So section C is here. It says table 4 below shows the 2002 immigration data for 5 selected Caribbean countries. Table 4 immigration data for selected Caribbean country in 2002. All right, let's analyze the table here, guys. So this table says immigration data for selected Caribbean country. So this is immigration. Immigration is person moving into a country. So there are 5 countries here: Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, St. Lucia, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago. So it shows you persons moving into these countries within the Caribbean country, from the Caribbean countries and from countries that are not Caribbean countries. All right. So part 1 of the question says use the grid provided on page 19 to draw a suitable graph to represent the data in table 4. All right. So I'm going to. All right. So this is what I came up with, guys. All right. So on this axis, of course, we put the number of individuals, population size. Down here we put the countries, we color code them with a key, and of course guys you should have a title. I didn't put a title, but remember you must put a title. All right, so here this is after finish plotting. What you need to do, guys, make sure you use call this again. All right, ensure you use numbers that you can easily mark off here. All right, so this is what I got. Let's move to the next question. It says use the data. It says use the data in table 4 to suggest which of the countries is most likely to be the least developed of those listed. State one reason for your answer, and what I got from it was St. Lucia, the least person moving to live there. So remember guys, if persons are not coming into your country, it means development there is very poor. There's nothing to attract tourists. There may be not enough jobs to attract them to come. So no one would want to come. Alright, so this is St. Lucia here. It shows you that immigration into this country is very low. Alright. When you look at Barbados, it's very high. And when you look at Trinidad and Tobago, for the non-Caribbean countries, it's high as well. Alright. Let's look at the next part of the question. It said, suggest 2 likely reasons for the immigration data for Barbados. So why is immigration so high? It could be war in neighboring countries. It could be that Barbados has better job opportunity. So And of course, it could be a boom in the tourism sector at Barbados. It's more attractive, it's more tourist friendly, it's more developed. Tourists feel safer, there are more attractiveness there, you know, more discounts, it's cleaner beach, friendlier people, etc. Of course, guys, let's look at the section D. It says, describe how any three historical or demographic factor may result in changes in the population size of country in the Caribbean region. So if you notice, guys, coming out of slavery, there were many education, but since education now, more individuals have exposed to education. Of course, it results in a lower population growth. So if you notice, most of the Caribbean countries right now who are educated, the growth rate is slower than usual. Of course, we also know about gender equality. We have more gender equality now, and if you notice, females are more independent. There are less population growth, less children being born, all right, than previously. Three, higher exporting and GDP have improved the standard of living for persons in the country, preventing brain injury. But as you can see, too, guys, the countries that have lower exporting, lower paying their people, that have lower standard of living, you notice most foreign countries now are paying teachers, for example, way better. So we have enough brain injury. Now, if the Caribbean countries can maintain a higher standard of living, most persons won't have to emigrate, keeping the persons here, keeping the educated persons here, more of them, population growth will decrease. All right, guys, so this is the end of module 2. Hopefully, I have made an impact, and of course, if you feel you have gained any value, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll try my best to put up more videos like this. Thank you.